Welcome back. Okay. No, so now after you copy this and started your first server, you can press on learn and just follow the getting started to learn a bit more about how to use Node.js. This is going to be actually what we will be doing together, and let's keep going from here and follow the documentation and see what it's in there. All right. So we created the first server. So we use the REST Pride server, and this just throw this header into the response. But how do we know that this is actually true? So we can inspect the page, we can open the Nectar tab, and we can check everything that comes from um, and to our server. So we perform a request and we get a response. So from the response, we can actually see the response, the actual response, or we see a preview. We can see the initiator, the timing, we can see the headers. And here we should see this content type text plain in here inside the response headers, and it is here. If we want to, we can even add more headers to the page. In fact, if you read the documentation, scroll just a little bit down. You have, when you visit the documentation for Node.js, you have two different tabs. The one for the CJS syntax, which is the old syntax, and the module-based syntax that you can use. This import is the one that we are using. So you can just keep scrolling and you read a bit more about what we are doing now. Uh, the response that we just received and they used to write inside a new header, it's this response object here. It's the HTTP server response object. We also have access to the request, which is an instance of the incoming message object, and we can manipulate both. We can manipulate the request and the response using our Node.js variables, so the request and the response. In fact, if you just keep scrolling, here is the case where we can set the status code. Actually, we didn't do that in our example because we wrote that using the REST write head, which accepts this parameter, which is the status code. Otherwise, if we want, can just let me just comment this out and use the response. And then in here, we can use one of the methods that is available to us or the properties like this one, status code, and set our status code and see what's in the response after we do that. Status code, you see this is a property. So we can set this to 101. 201 is different status code, which is used more for post request when everything goes fine and the resource is created. But let's just try it and see what happens. So let's go back and let's refresh the page and see what we have here. We should see a new status code, but we cannot see anything. We still see the same status code I did before. So the one we have here, but not this one. But I was expecting this instead of this one. All right, so let's stop the server. You press Ctrl C and the server is stopped. Next, you write or type or press the up arrow to have this command again in your terminal and then press enter and start the server again. Now let's refresh the page and see what we got. All right, so you see now, this is the server request that we have just made, and we do have a different status code. This status code is 201, which is the one we set here. And now, again, if I want to, I don't know, write different header, press write uh, in the right add, we can write the status code, status message, or options. Let's try some different options like what we could do is like a different header, any kind of header. Like let's say my name, Fabio, and let's write Node.js. Yeah, all right. So I set this status code to 201 and I wrote this header here. So using response head, which is a method available inside the server response object. All right, so to see this again, if I refresh the page, nothing changes. And you still see if I click here and I hit the response headers, there's nothing different. And even the content type that we had before is no longer here. But if I just write again this content type without the response, without the status code, if we want, we can just simplify this like that and like that. All right, let's leave the object notation aside. All right, so I wrote the status code 200. Let's set this again to 200, which is the correct status code return in this case. And then we add the content type, text plain, and then we write this header. But again, when I refresh the page, the server is still serving the previous content of our file server MJS. Instead, we just changed it and the server didn't reload. So we need to actually change the way we're running this script here because uh, from node, I think 14, there is an option called watch that we can use to keep the server listening and refreshing itself without us doing Control C and then running this again. So the server will do that on its own without our intervention. So let me refresh the page very quickly. Oops, I think I made a mistake. Let's see. Provisional headers are shown. Oops. Yeah, it's calling the server, but I made a mistake. Let's see what I've done. It's about the status code, I think, range error, content type, what I've done. Right header, content type, text plain. Oops, sorry. This was 200 and then the object notation, but I changed that this way. Let me put that back as it was. Let's see if that was the error I made. Yeah, I think so. Let's refresh the server. Let's see, there is an error? No, okay. We should see in our network a response. I think it's something in stock. Let me double check very quick. Okay, I know what it is. Actually, I'm using right head twice. Instead, I cannot do that. Let me just comment this out. This is the example from the documentation. I wanted to change this. Let me set the status code. I write the head. Instead with write head, I use set header, and then we set this header. We can do the same. Instead of using response write head, you can use a response set header, and then we do content type content type with capital C, and then we set these to text plain, right? Okay, so this is a text plain page because we set this header as text plain, and then we set this other header here, and then the status code appear, and again, I have to refresh the page and start my server again. Let's see if this fixes the error. I think it doesn't. Set header, content type text plain, and let's do again one Control C and refresh the server again. And it's not working because I think this is the one that it's giving us problems. Let's comment that out and let's add the watch flag, otherwise I will doing, keep stopping the server and restarting the server every time. So Do you see how annoying it is? When you make a mistake inside this code, you need to stop the server and then restart it and then stop and then restart it. And you never know if you actually have to restart the server because you made a change and it didn't catch up. Otherwise, with this watch flag, you don't have to worry about that. All right, so the server is starting now. And we do have, let's see, we have a response, we have text plain, and here we have my new header. You see Fabio and Node.js is the header that I've just set. You can do a bit more. For instance, if you want to, instead of this, um, you need to end the response, the request response cycle, and you do that using a response end or other functions that are available inside the documentation. Make sure you double check it. If I want to return text HTML, I can change the header. And you see the server now is restarting on its own without my intervention. And now, if I am not wrong, I should be able to say H1. Let me add an H1 tag in here. Let me close it. And then in the middle, let's say hello Node.js. So we restart the server. Then let me refresh the page. And something broke and we failed something. Let's check what we made as a mistake. So the set header is here, text HTML, and then the status code is correct. Let me stop this bloody server and start it again. Okay, you need to actually call the set header before the write head because write head needs to be the last thing you write. But you need to change text plain to text HTML and then write the HTML inside here. Then when you refresh the page, this is going to work. Otherwise, as it was before, I had this down here and probably this is going to work just not. And if click reload, nothing happens. But if we move the set header before the write head call, which has even the status code. I mean, even here, I'm using and setting a status code, but then let's say 201, and then I change the status code later on using the write head. And then if we go here in the network tab and we check these call if the status code is 200, it's not 201 because we set the property to 201, then we set this header, then we move this header here, which set this different status code, and then if we click down here and we see the response, we still see my custom header, but then we also see the text HTML and the status code 200. All right, so let's move a bit forward and see what else we can do with our server. So we are running it in watch mode because this is a better way to run our script because it will save us some time. But I said before that we can use npm, can initialize this as an npm project. Let me stop this and clear a little bit. And let's run, let me close everything that I don't need to see here now. npm init, and then we say dash y to avoid all the questions. It's gonna ask different questions, the name, the version, the main script, the main entry file, another different question that at the end will become this JSON here. So now that we have this package.json, we can type here module, type module. You see, we have two different options, common.js or which is the default value, or module. So we want to use the ASIC module syntax, so we set this to module. And with that in place, I can even change this to standard.js file. So the extension is going to be just JS, no MJS, and it should work again. But let's do change this script section and add a new script. Let's say start, and then in the start script we say node and then the name of the file server.js. What else? Start missing column. Okay, so this is a different script I'm running, so I don't have to run node from here. I don't have to type this node server.mjs. I just type npm start, and this will launch this command up here. This is not using the watch mode. So with the start, it's throwing an error. Let's see what happens. So we have a node internal module CJS loader. Why have I saved this? Yes, this is JS. And let's say type module. It's here. npm start. It says that it cannot find module. So it's missing a letter. So server, there was a type. npm start. So you see, this is going to start the web server without having to type the entire command. But then we want even the watch command. So let me just stop the server again and let me copy this command here and then let's add a new script. So we come up here, we add, let's say that, and in here, let's write our script. Then here we have it. So we have the package JSON, and instead of typing node dash dash watch server.mjs, I can just type npm from dev as usual. And then we have our server in watch mode, and we can change whatever is inside our closure here and see if these updates our code. Let's write express crash course, save it. This is refreshing. So the web server just restarted, but we need to refresh the page and here we have it. Okay, that's it for this video. If you like the video, like the video. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.